Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. The other day I uploaded this video, so I wanted to go through a few things that I thought were interesting or red flags, and I will be playing clips of the audio in the normal speed that it is in. So this caller says her name is Megan and that her daughter is friends with Sammy and that they have known Sammy for about 5 years. The first call was basically Sammy's story and Sammy's narrative. I think that it's important because this phone call came on August 9th, which was before Sammy ever did her interview with All American Dream Chaser. And we still don't know how he even managed to get this interview with Sammy. So maybe this caller was an attempt to get Sammy's story out. Now, in the third phone call, she says that they thought Kiely stayed the night out there and that when people woke up at 8 a.m., they didn't see her. So if in fact there were people that stayed after this party had ended, how did no one see her? They thought that Kiely stayed the night out there, but at 8 o'clock in the morning, when people went to go leave, her car had been gone. So and the last time that Sam saw her was at 12:30 when they texted each other. And they said they were coming home, that she was at the party still, and everybody was like kind of just whining, starting to leave. So the only thing that they don't know is who saw her leave. They can't find out who saw her leave. She also mentioned something about when everybody was lining up, getting ready to leave, which kind of sounded familiar to me, because we know the camper said that they saw a train of cars leaving the party at 12:30. However, in Jane Doe number 2's video, she tells us that the road was blocked off and doesn't mention anything about this train of cars. So from Jane Doe, that entrance was blocked with vehicles and no one left during this time. But she is the only person that we have heard this from, and we now have 2 accounts of cars leaving at 12:30. Possible this train of cars left before the road was blocked and Jane Doe just didn't mention that? Yes, it's possible. Then she goes on to mention something happened later in the night at the party that people weren't talking about. I did find out there was something that's happened at the party, not bad on anything else, but it hasn't been very much talked about because I asked this question and it just kind of shot from there. So if someone knows what happened later in the party, nothing bad, and just something that happened later in the party that was a small thing, and it started then, that would be helpful to know where she was and who she left with after that. I don't know. I guess I can say there's a fire that was started, like a bonfire, that was started later in the evening, but when a lot of the people were there at the beginning of the party, there was no fire. And when I mentioned a fire, they said it started out later. So I said, did anybody see Kiely after the fire started when they were all sitting around? They said no. So they need to know who left before the fire started at the place than before. So now what I got from that was that this fire was started much later, maybe after most people had already left the party. And they could just not be talking about it because, well, they're not supposed to be starting fires out there. We do have evidence that there was a fire. This is a picture of what appears to be a fire, and this was actually up at the sanctuary location. Several people that have went there and filmed in this spot have shown us this. So now in the 4th call, she's talking about the car is not at and in my opinion, it sounds like she's about to say the car is not at Boca. That's just my opinion. The car is not at, where the reason in the water, it's not. They've looked in the water. They've had divers. They've had everywhere else. So and there's only one way in and one way out of the party. Most of the kids stayed overnight. Some of them left. The girls and guys do this all the time. They tell their parents, you're 16 years old, you get messed up, and then you stay where you land. I just thought it was interesting that it sounded like she was about to say Boca, and we know that there are other claims to have allegedly seen Kiely in that area. And she also mentioned that they had divers out there and that they had searched the water. So this phone call was on August 9th. This article is posted on August 9th. These are just some of the pictures attached to that, and we know that these divers were looking over by the boat ramp, so not necessarily in the spot Kiely was at. I do have a whole separate video on the divers, the dive teams, and who was searching and where, but we also know that the Alameda divers only went 25 feet out and were instructed to look for Kiely's phone. Now, phone call number 5. She says that it started out as a boring party and that there were some shady characters who were there. And this is where I thought that this was interesting.
A lot of these kids all know each other, but this is the problem, is that there is too many people that showed up. It was actually a boring party, and there was nothing going on, just drinking and lots of things that were happening at the party. There were shady characters there, yes. There was a few people that they cannot identify. They know that they were there. They know it possibly from Kings Beach. And she told me that it was a tall gentleman that had a goat mustache, but no one can say they don't know who he was. He was there and they don't know who he was. There are people out there that they did not know who was. So the best bet is that someone said they were going to take Kiely home and did not take Kiely home.
Now, this photo is allegedly from the party. However, I don't know where this photo came from, when it first surfaced, or who took it, so I'm not 100% sure. I just think it's interesting because of that description. Also from phone call number 5, she mentions again that someone did stay the night there, that they cleaned up the party the next morning and didn't see Kiely. She asks Sam directly, where was Kiely when Sammy left? Then she says that she asked Sammy if people were going back and forth between the party and the fire and to charge their phones, but I just said before, it sounded like the fire was later in the party, but now this would sound like it was during the party. So I don't know, lots of contradictions here.
And there was 100 kids that were approximately supposed to show up, and it got to be about 200 kids. Someone left at 8 o'clock in the morning after they cleaned up the party, and they know who was there. They did not see Kiely's car there in the morning, but they saw it at 12:30, and Sam saw her when I asked Sam directly, I said, where were you, when you left with the person that she left with, where was Kiely? And she said she was in the middle of the crowd, just all walking around. This is also something that is being said, that I asked Sam. Was everybody at the party, or were they hanging around in their cars? Many people hang around and listen to their music in their cars, and so they go back and forth between the fire and the area where the party is to go back and charge their phones and back and forth because we don't have service and our phones die.
Now, phone call number 6, she says that Sam has nothing to hide and that they're telling all of the kids that they will not get in trouble for anything. They just want to find Kiely.
I talked to Sam, and I trust Sam because she has nothing to hide at this point. She has total anonymity. That's what they're telling the kids, is that if you come in and say anything, you're not going to get in trouble. You're not going to have any problems, and everybody just wants to find her and bring her home.
Now, it almost made it sound like she thought that Sam had immunity, but we know that the police were telling them that they wouldn't get in trouble for drinking or drugs. However, I don't necessarily agree that Sam doesn't have anything to hide, and I think that if it came back that one of these kids were involved, yes, they would be getting in trouble and facing that consequence. Now, in phone call number 7, she talks about Kiely's phone died and talks about that Kiely had her laptop. I just think this is interesting because most of her information seems to be coming from Sammy, and considering that Kiely's laptop was left behind in the water. Now, it would appear that law enforcement still hasn't found Kiely's cell phone, but they obviously weren't too worried about her laptop either. In regards to the phone, my whole thing is, if we know for a fact that Kiely was going back to her car to charge her phone, if she was driving, wouldn't she have plugged her phone in if it was dead to charge it?
We don't know if they kept trying to charge her phone. They've looked on Snapchats. They've looked everywhere. Her phone died. She did have a computer in her car. She did have stuff in her car. No one's seen her. She was supposed to go home. I did see today that she was seen at 1:30. I don't know that part.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I know personally one of the first things I do when I get in my car is I plug my phone in. We've heard from multiple people that they were going back to Kiely's car to charge her phone, which leads me to believe that she had a charger in her car. And she goes on to say that because they can't find her car, it leads everyone to believe that she's in the water, and says that they searched Prosser.
Yeah, that they can't find the car does lead everybody to think that it's in the water. They have dredged the water. They said that last night. They've been in the water with scuba divers. They've been in the water doing all of the stuff in the Prosser. I think they have looked in the Prosser.
We know how this whole situation unfolded. There's been lots of speculation that her car was later dumped after the divers had searched. but that's why I tried to put together in another video the divers' timeline of when and where they searched so that we could know if that's even a possibility. Now, we've heard reports of Kiely's last sighting being at 1:30 a.m. We also heard from law enforcement that she was wearing this white Odd Future sweatshirt and that they had video footage of her in it at the party, yet they never released it. Now, these are the coordinates of Kiely's last known location, and if we look that up, it would put it at that party site location. So if in fact people did stay the night and camped there, someone would have had to have seen something, especially since this 1:30 sighting puts her after the party allegedly ended. So, two of the biggest red flags to me are that Kiely's last sighting was at 1:30 a.m., and we know that people stayed all night there, so someone would have had to have seen something, and that people were going back and forth to charge their phones because this was a senior farewell party, so you would assume that they would want to take lots of pictures and videos. I'm just not buying that they just don't exist.